Hello, I'm Bret Moss, and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guest today is Nadia Khalil Bradley. Nadia is the author of Origins of Truth, words that will awaken you to the truth of your heart. She's a Palestinian American who was raised as a practicing Muslim. As an adult, she began to hear the voice of Jesus Christ and went on to record her conversations with him in a journal. She was born in Chicago and now lives in Southern California. Together, she and her husband Sterling have 6 children. Nadia Khalil Bradley, welcome back to Defining Moment. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you back here to our studio.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thanks for coming. Our topic today is living life passionately for the sake of others. And I'd like to begin by asking you to share a defining moment from your own life.
I have a very recent defining moment. I think we have many defining moments as we go through life. And recently, my mom suffered from a brain aneurysm. And I immediately flew to Chicago to see her, and she was in a coma and laying. And I always believed you could hear while you're in a coma. And I would talk to her, and I would just start talking about my childhood, and I would just, was making myself feel better. I think she didn't even know what she didn't know. But there I was. And then I looked up at her and I said, Mom, all those problems you had, they're all gone now. But you're still here. Isn't that interesting? Like, they don't exist anymore. They don't have a place. They don't have time. They don't have energy. So they're gone. And you're here and you don't know they're here. And it made me think about my life. And I realized in that moment that whatever I give energy to is what will live around me. And that whatever I don't feed or give strength to doesn't have a chance. And that it's a choice. And her life was still teaching me that nothing is as it seems. And you can learn even from what someone taught you before, without them using the words or even having the ability to speak to you anymore in that way. Their language, their love, their truth, as they gave it to you, now lives bigger in you.
Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Why does Jesus talk about living life passionately to such extremes as saying that if you want to live, first you must die, and there's no greater love than to lay down your life for a friend?
If you want to live, first you must die, is figuratively speaking, of course. A lot of times when we were younger, somebody may have said something to us that hurt us. And I don't think I've ever met anyone that didn't hear a fleeting comment from someone about themselves that it didn't affect them very heavily. And that person may have forgotten they ever said it, but we built a map around it. And if nobody that we talked to knew about it, they would never know it was what was our driving point that may have quenched our passion or stopped it. One of the two usually happens. And if we don't say, hey, that was one person's opinion, that wasn't even my thought, yet I used their thought and let it take away from me. But that was an old thought. I think this now. That's not true. I realize we have the right to argue with the stronger things in our mind that sometimes overtake us when one thing goes wrong that's unrelated but triggers it. To remind ourselves that, if that person didn't exist, nobody else ever thought that. Why did I take that to heart? A lot of times because it's the first time you've heard that, and it shocks you. And it stifles your behaviors. Something others wouldn't know, but you know. And that's when other people become people, and then you exempt yourself, which disconnects you from all the things we talk about. like loving others, loving yourself. What does that mean? That's the compassion I talk about that you regain by saying, you know, they may have thought that, but I don't think that about me. I actually really do like myself. I enjoy my time when I'm alone. I can relax. It gives me time to think about what I want to do and how I can affect others, how I can be a part of life because I feel good being a part of life. If you're alone and can feel that, you enjoy your time alone and you enjoy your time with others. If you're alone and you can't think that, you automatically start to think you're alone because nobody loves you, and you give that one opinion or that one thought that that person said and you put it in everybody's mouth around you, and you hear it back to you over and over again. And we do this all the time. I realized when somebody says they're alone, they want you to say, oh, that's too bad. But I say, you made a choice to be alone. Why? It's not a poor me story. It's a choice. People love people who love. They're naturally attracted to them. Sometimes you see somebody walk into a room and everybody says, oh, everyone loves that man. Everyone loves that woman. But that's really not what's happening. What's really happening is that woman or that man love everybody else. Nothing is as it seems. Nothing is as it's seen. But we found a way to even take that away. That they must have earned it, or it's because they have that job or those clothes. Has nothing to do with it. It has to do with what they feel. A lot of times when we are around people, we don't remember what they were wearing. We don't remember sometimes what they said. But we will remember how we feel when we are around them. And a lot of times it gives us energy and excitement towards our own life. We kind of borrow their passion to ignite our own. So when we do lay things to rest, or they die before we can live, we have to know that we have a choice to do that we aren't forever burdened, and that's the way it is. It's not the way it is. It's the way you may have chose to keep it. There was something I asked myself very early on in life because I had many questions about religion. Being born Muslim in America at that time, in the early 60s, there weren't many Muslim people around, and if there were, they really weren't Muslim. They were more cultural. They're Muslim by birth and by region, geographically, and then we came here, and all that is the way it is. But really, there was more culture embedded in our lifestyles. And sometimes there was a difference between the two. But I always had questions. Why can my neighbor eat pork and I can't if we all say we have one God? Why can I dance at a wedding and they can't? How could that make you bad? And who made, I didn't know how to quantify these questions. But I did come up, and I was maybe 8 or 9 when I thought this, but only because I couldn't do a lot of what people around me were doing. And I used to think, well, who gives somebody the right to take your rights away from you? You're here and you're a human being, and you're exposed to many, many things. And why can't you try them? Why can't you figure out who you are? If you come here to do exactly what somebody else wrote down, what's the point of you being here? I was trying to figure that out for so long. Because a kid thinks in clarity. When I got older, I said, well, then it makes this person happy and it makes that person happy. But are we all living under this umbrella that we're so scared to go out of and get wet? So I'd always stick my baby toe out from under the umbrella. And it gets me in a lot of trouble.
I'm sure it does.
But letting things go that bring us down is really the point of Christ telling us. that certain things do have to die before you can continue. We are here to learn. We are learners. That's really our food. That's the purpose of us being here. And we have found so many ways to stifle that, to stagnate it, to stop it from happening, unless it's in a category like research or politics or business. Yet in our souls we say, stop right there, don't grow. Because if you do, that means you're bad, you're not following this. As we're sitting in the year 2008 with completely different issues. But truly, living life without passion isn't worth living. People try to create passion through different means, whether it's, whatever substance, or through things, or through, drinking, or whatever it is that they use to create passion. Okay, then I'll feel good enough to do this, without reaching deep inside. And then you really don't remember what you felt completely. Or you depend on something outside of you to feel it. But passion is priceless. If you can tap in to what you love, you give it an entire different energy in the process of you doing it. It's like saying you go to an art gallery and it's filled with pictures and they're beautiful and beautiful colors. And 2 or 3 of them in that gallery, people are standing in front of. And some of them you can't make sense of. You don't know why. And people are looking. And then you go and you look and you start seeing something beautiful there. What you're seeing is the passion of the person who painted it, as opposed to the picture next to it that may look perfect. The house is perfect. The trees are perfect. The street is perfect. We feel passion when somebody else has it. We share passion with people who have it. And we admire when we can have it in our own lives. And we respect the projects that we work on with passion. We remember them all of our lives. Again, I love saying this. Passion is a way of life, not a momentary thought. If your friend calls you, enjoy the conversation. Don't think what I have to do after. If you have to go, say you have to go. Let yourself live in your moments, because those moments are what take care of the next moments and what feed the next moments. And if they have passions, your passions in them, whether you're cooking a meal or doing your job or taking your child to the park.
Okay, thank you very much. Why would you agree that if a person isn't living for the sake of others, they aren't fully alive?
I love that question. I love a lot of them, because then we can talk about these things. And there's something Christ told me over and over again, and that is that we are not meant to be here alone. If we were, each one of us would know everything. Everybody has a gift. Even taping today, we couldn't do it without everybody else's gifts. Neither one of us knows how to do everything. It takes all of us. We each have a different part and a different role. It does not mean that there is any soul more important than another. We each physically could not take care of everybody. So we have to trust that God can and will, and that we do our best with our best intentions in every day towards all that we do and think and feel and care about. And it extends itself, it ripple effects onto everything around us. And it affects people you don't even know.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it possible to be focused on being devoted to achieving personal wealth and success and be authentically concerned about living for the sake of others?
It's possible. I haven't seen it very much. And it's not a good or bad thing. I think it's just, once people get used to just thinking of themselves, it's easy to make sure your nest is okay and leave everyone's nest up to them. If they need another twig, it doesn't matter. You're okay. And I think it's isolated a lot of people. It isolated the people who attain a certain wealth because they start fearing what's around them or people around them or their motivations or why they want to know them. So it almost takes away about as much as it gives. Yet the part that it takes away isn't acknowledged because they say, oh, he'll get over that. He has the money. But the person who has the money doesn't get over it. Everybody has their challenges here. And having a lot of money is just as big a challenge as not having any at all. And for everyone, the one on this side and the one on this side, there's lessons for them to learn. And they came here to be that person. And so within that, how do they come out of that, and how do they release themselves from the pressures of their situations? And it sounds like, somebody who's very wealthy needs to go backwards, but it's not going backwards. It's still growing into the higher consciousness of who they could be. Because with the means, you can do many things that give back to people. We're starting to see a little bit more of it because of the types of situations that are coming up in life, where we have a catastrophe or a hurricane or, some kind of thing where people really have to come to the plate. And they always think they're the ones helping. But again, like nothing is as it seems or as it's seen. It actually helps them to help others. There isn't anything Christ has said to me that wasn't multifaceted and didn't teach everyone in the mix. The lessons aren't just what it looks like for the one or the other, or my mom laying there. The lesson was for all of us around her, to know what that's like when you have to change how your life is going to be with somebody. And what can you do to make that better in that moment? Well, I can hold her hand. I can brush her hair and I can wash her face even though she's just laying there. And many people who end up having great wealth, they do live in a different world, just like somebody who doesn't have enough lives in a different world. But all those different worlds make up the world that we all live in. And when balance is tipped, people are tipped. We reflect what we are living. And so it's important for both to give in the ways that they can, because it's about giving. It's about understanding what it means to receive or to accept, or why you're in a situation that you're in. I think one of the hardest things is that when somebody does have a lot of wealth, they feel they don't have the right to complain about certain things. Yet they may be very lonely. And when they do get somebody that they trust, they hold on to them with both hands and feet. It's actually more sad to me than somebody who doesn't have that much. There's something I've been writing, and I'm always writing, is about, I came from having a very good life where I didn't have to worry about anything. And I also had nothing, which is my status now. I invested everything I had, every friend I had, every friend of mine that could help me to write this book that I felt like I have to do. And I realized in that process that without others, I could not have done this. Without the ones who had some wealth that happened to know me from before, that said, I can help you. This couldn't have been possible because how else could I have done it? But now that it's done, and now that it's out there, and now that I've learned what I've learned to produce it, there's something very beautiful that came out of it. And that is, I realized that the less money I had, the greater I learned what I actually needed. The more knowledge I had, the more love I had, the different ways that I took situations in and solved them from my heart rather than from my mind alone, really made a difference in what I needed. And I realized I was pretty happy already. And there's something very sobering when you can't just run to the store and buy what you think you need, because 2 days later you forgot what that even was. We all work, we all strive, we all can provide a certain level, but wherever we're at, there's a reason for it. There's a bigger reason of what lessons you're in store for. There was a time, and I remember it very clearly, and I woke up, I had $5 to my name, and I was single with 2 kids. And I said, wow, this is what that feels like. I can still buy a loaf of bread and a lot of cheese and make a lot of grilled cheese sandwiches. But now, I'll never forget what $5 feels like. Once I actually got a job and I started working, there was a homeless man on the corner of the grocery store we always go to. If I had $10, I'd split it with him. He was happy. And that was saying a lot more than what I saw with wealth or not. Even if it was oblivious at times, he was happy. He taught me, speaking of defining moments, that money and wealth doesn't know what happiness is. Money is just an object. We give it the energy that it has. We use it to be better than somebody else, just like we may use accomplishments. But when I'm around that, I don't want any part of it. Sometimes I think I don't ever want to have that. And if I do, which is my deal with God, and I make deals with God all the time, that if I ever had more money than I needed, my job is to start one program after another for the things that I think are my contribution while I'm here. I want to start a program for self-esteem and confidence building in children. I want to do something for single families, single-parent families, because they're 60% of our culture. There's no support. And we have to live with the losses of those lacks of support and lacks of systems. And there's not enough money to replace love when it comes to families and when it comes to lacks of resources for everybody. We are in this together. You can only go behind the gate for so long. I don't care how big the gate is, without being affected.
Thank you so much. What are the real rewards of living for the sake of others, often known only to those who have the courage to live a sacrificial lifestyle, which often includes forfeiting a lifestyle of materialistic greed and comforts?
Well, that's a question that sometimes we equate wealth with, like, oblivious to everything else that's going on. That's hopefully starting to change with certain people, bigger people who have the kind of wealth that say, I'm going to donate all of my money after I pass to this organization or to help, certain types of health issues around the world. People are starting to say that, and there's that saying that, well, if they sneeze, everyone else can catch a cold, so we can all jump in and share that box of Kleenex, and start cleaning up. We went through a period of time where that was so true that we built a resentment between the people who have and don't have. And I think that still exists at some levels, and some people still fill those stereotypes. Sacrificing is really a higher consciousness. And it's not like sacrificing and then you say, oh, I missed that and I gave it up because of. It's really living within the means of what your mind can take, not what you might think it wants. Because sometimes we provide our own selves with so much that we ourselves don't know what to do with it. We start wasting. We stop caring if somebody else has it or not. there's different mindsets that come with every stage of whatever challenge we're in at different points in our lives. But there's something that I ask myself over and over again, and I ask people, is, are you the same person in both places? Because only that mind is the mind that can take up to say, you know, I'm not sacrificing, I just don't need that. And because I don't need that, I can share more of what we actually all need. It's definitely a bigger picture of thought. Sometimes you can get a group of people to follow somebody and sacrifice, but they're basically waiting for you to tell them why and what they're doing with it, which is a whole different thing. But I'm talking about the individual who gets to the point that says, I want to give back in this way, and in that way, and in that way. Do I really need 4 or 5 homes, a boat, and a plane? And we know people who have that. Or would the cost of that plane feed a small country? And probably would. And would I go and ensure that that happens? Do I make sure I give it to a group that's accountable? Do I hand deliver it? Do I give it in education? Do I give it in programs that I build that build infrastructure and stability? We think of wealth in money. I think of wealth in what your mind can do. And the true wealth is somebody who has both and acts on what they're doing. Anything less than that, money comes and goes in all of our lives. But who are you in it is the bigger question. And that's why when I say the person who has none can still share, because there's wisdom and there's time, which time is a luxury. All of us can contribute, and nobody on earth can live like excuseless, you know, where they can say, oh, but I have this and I'm busy and whatever, or I don't have the money to do that. There's certain things that, yeah, you can't, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything.
Okay, Nadia Khalil Bradley. On that note, I want to thank you so much for having been our guest on Defining Moment. How can our viewers get a copy of your book, Origins of Truth?
They can get it at www.originsoftruth.com. And we have it, it's all over the internet. So it's on barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, Target.com. So it's available. And again, on our website.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having been our guest on A Defining Moment.
Thank you.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thank you for watching and have a great day.